Hey guys, I was talking to somebody I know the other day about their miter saw and how much dust it creates. The specific person was they have the new Evolution chop saw that cuts through steel and it basically throws chips all over the shop. I had the same problem originally. I bought a DeWalt miter saw. It's the biggest pig in my shop. I mean, it just throws dust everywhere. And so, I started looking around the internet for different ideas on how to mitigate it. I have a dust collector, and so I was trying to figure out a way how to get a good dust collection behind it so I could, sort of control the waste and at a minimum confine it to a specific area. So I got an idea when I went to a woodworking store one time, and they basically have like a little tent that you could buy for 160 or 70 bucks. And it's sort of a backstop for your saw, and then all the debris goes into that backstop and then falls down to the bottom, and then you can open it up and sweep the dust out. So I made something similar. I'm going to show what it is. I originally thought that I designed it in Fusion 360 and I was going to provide some files for it, but it turns out what I did was I built it in place. And then later I used Fusion 360 to design some drawers and so on. So anyway, let me show you what it is. Okay, this is my saw station. I have it dragged outside right now because my shop is a mess. But anyway, what I did was I just kind of using that same idea is I just created this backdrop behind it. And I originally built this thing out of 80/20s. I got like a trailer load of these at an auction. And so I was just, basically trying to build a cart and get something that worked, with the idea being that I can chop around on these and change the dimensions really easy. There's probably improvements on this. There's a lot of wasted space up here. If you wanted to drop it down, it's probably not necessary to go that high, but I wanted to make sure that it was high enough that it could catch all the debris. One of the things, like I was saying, with something like this is that it takes up floor space. And if you're anything like me, you don't have any wall space. And I know some people set these up with like a little dust collection box behind it. And then they bolt it to the side of their wall, and then they have like a long run where they could take like a beam or whatever and stick it on there and cut it, and then their dust collector and everything's routed right there. I guess if I had like a big steel building or something, you may wind up with enough wall space to do something like that. But for really big stuff, I always drag this out in the driveway and cut stuff with it. So one of the things I was going to say is I originally put dust collection in here, and you can see that's right in the action with the saw, and it spits out into there. And when I connect the dust collector to line to that, it literally evacuates everything out of here. And then I have another port down here, and I'm just showing this for the woodworking guys. And then on this side, I have a dust collection hose. So all the dust gets retrieved through this pipe. I got a paper towel stuck in there. And then I have a quick disconnect hookup that I can unplug back here. Okay, so, but I rarely use the dust collection because it basically, this little door here traps 90% of the debris, like within this confined space. And so the main thing is, you can see here, this little wall is right in plane with the fence. And so I've enclosed everything behind that. The other thing you want to consider is, the adjustment of your saw. You need to make sure that in the far angle and in the far extended position here, you have enough clearance. So I probably could have backed this wall off a little bit and saved a little bit of room on both sides, but it's just what I went with. I also added these little bars right here so that it's perfectly parallel with that fence. So when I come and bring long stock in here, like say when I say long stock, I'm talking about like a 12-footer. And so you could stick it on this guy, and then you get a little bit of support there. And for something longer, what I would do is bring in like a roller just to get that extra support. I designed this box that went underneath it. I mean, obviously you could do something like that. Like I said, I have these 80/20s on stock, so I made the drawer pulls out of these. So I make a lot of these cabinets, and then I cut, see these little runners here? Those just get glued and shot in with some nails. And so there's one on this side and one on this side here. And you can use a spacer to kind of like, gap them. I mean, you have to make sure your layout's good so you get good like lines like these for this to work. You don't want like excessive gaps in between them, because these things will like be able to migrate around too far and they might slip off the runner there. And then here's a little picture of the side of the box. And so those runners just slide down this little prismatic pocket in the side of here. You could probably do this with something else, like if you had an L that you weld on something, and then you have like another piece of angle that sticks out, and just in that way they can kind of slide on top of each other. Obviously, if the drawer gets too heavy, that's going to turn into a problem. But I mean, these drawer sliders are expensive, man. Sometimes they're like $20-$25 a piece. I think you could probably get some real cheap ones for a few bucks each. But if you do a big cabinet like this, where I have, let's see, 4 to like 12 drawers, I mean, even if they're $5 a piece, it's still a lot of money. I mean, $100 on something that doesn't even matter. Yeah, so I guess if you get the fit right, I mean, it works really well. And I have a couple of these drawers that have like a bunch of heavy crap in them, and like this one here, it's got a lot of stuff in it. But these two are straight relative to each other, and then the recess or whatever the hanger is on the side of the drawer has to be parallel too, and then it'll work out really good. I got the original idea from these drawers from this company called Gersner, and they make toolboxes for machinists, and they're really small, like dainty drawers. And the thing I like about them is that there's like these very small gaps in here, and they don't use any drawer hardware. They just use these recesses here, and then some like runners installed on the inside. I made this as kind of like my own ghetto copy of their $1,200 toolbox, but you get the point on how to do it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I guess all the magic is in getting your gaps here and everything to work out, so you don't have like a bunch of excess. These are about perfect. I think if I had a smaller gap than that, it would get kinked in here and I'd have difficulty pushing and pulling it out. So another thing that's important, like I said, is space utilization. So I'm trying to get my money's worth out of this cart. I put these little angles here, and I just bolted them right on here to this little extra section. And then I could hang my clamps on it. And you want to be able to take them to wherever you're using them. So I could push this cart over to where I'm doing a glue up. So, I mean, for like a weld shop or a machine shop, the same principles apply. There's all kinds of, things like this that require space in a storage location. You could just stick it on a cart like this. Another little thing I would have done differently is either put an outlet on the back of this thing, so I could plug this cable in or run a grommet through. I still want to be able to take this saw off and use it like if I need to go somewhere. And that's another idea, is if you could figure out a way to make it more transportable. Obviously, I'm not going anywhere with this cart, so I would just have to undo these fasteners and pull this out. But what I was thinking is I could have a receptacle that I install somewhere in the back, and then have a wire outlet that goes to the side and plugs in, so you could sort of plug an extension cord into this cart. I don't know. I mean, there's benefits in being able to kind of drag it around to wherever. And so I almost always use it with the extension cord. Hey, another thing is these big fat wheels. Like, you want to use really big wheels. They make small casters you can get at Home Depot or Harbor Freight or whatever. If you run over an electric cable with these, I think these are like 3.5 inch wheels, maybe 4. But it'll go right over an extension cord, where the smaller ones will bulk on like every single, if you get a little piece of gravel or something, and it'll basically halt on it. You'll have to address it before you can move forward. These kind of just roll over stuff pretty easily. So that's another thing that you want to think about if you put it on wheels. There's another little wheel design detail. These have locks on it, and they're sticking out far enough. These could be a blessing and a curse, because like these you could just push down with your foot, but it's not possible to get up underneath there and open up. So I wind up having to like crawl down there and push on or pull the locks off. But if I'm working on an unlevel surface, it could be good to have locking wheels. I'm gonna go ahead and cut some material. All right, I got this set up right here. We're gonna make some cuts on a 2x4. I'm gonna cut that part of that beam, and then I got some aluminum we'll cut on there too, just to show. These wood pieces, they're gonna produce like dust, and so you'll see like a little cloud. When you cut aluminum and steel, obviously it comes off in chips, so it's not gonna do the same thing. All right, I got my assistant here. He's gonna make some cuts for us. All right, so let me show. So we made a bunch of cuts. I got a little bit of dust right here on the floor. For wood, there's nothing you can do about that. If I had the dust collector on though, it would pull like everything through. Then everything just kind of winds up back here in the back, and you can sweep it up with a little dust broom or a vacuum. Now I'm gonna cut some aluminum. Okay, I made 2 or 3 cuts on this aluminum piece here, cut that beam and a bunch of 2x4. So you can see, I mean, it all kind of just gets stuck in here. Yeah, it all like kind of collects here on the saw and back in this area. I get a little bit right here and some on the ground. But I mean, you could then, it's in a small area, you could sweep it up. It's not, you don't find it under every single surface in your building. Just going to show how the saw is mounted here. So usually there's like some bolt holes in the front, and then I have this front beam here, and I just use a little connector to bolt into that. You're probably going to use like angle iron or something, and put a nut and bolt through it, and then another little lateral support to support the back. And then you have like a little bit of overhang on whatever goes in the back. So I think if you could figure out a way to make this drop down at an angle, all this waste would just kind of slide down into a corner, and you might be able to come up with some way to create a clean out where, you just sort of sweep it out through a hole or opening or something. Anyway, just an idea. For this one, I just wanted to do a quick spin on this this cart that I have for my miter saw. It actually helped me out quite a bit, and I agonized over for a long time. I used to have it mounted like on one of those saw horses, like the contractor saw horses that you could buy for the DeWalt saw, and it takes up, believe it or not, way more room than that cart does. It just, like I said, it's the biggest pig by far in my shop. You wind up broadcasting a bunch of stuff all over your shop. So if you put it in this little TV box, it kind of helps to contain that and keep it under control. If you have one of these saws, I'm telling you, it's pretty handy to have it on a cart like this. So anyway, thanks for checking it out.